Imagine a world where each individual is gifted a unique power, and a boy born into this world with no control over his gift. A power that brings misfortune to everyone around him, friend or foe, making him an outcast into the tribe he was born into. And upon growing up, the tribe sends him away, whether because they couldn't take his presence anymore, or because they thought he might actually be of use to the tribe in some shape or form. Regardless, the boy still feels rejected as he's sent away. But, being sent away, he finds hope and happiness. He meets friends, and even falls in love, and going so far as to even be recognized by the headmaster of the institute he's sent to, being opened up to the truth of the world, however dark it may be. He finds that he might be able to do some good and bring a positive change to this world where he's only known to bring misfortune. And along this journey, he even has a child and creates a family with the one he loves. But his happiness ends there. On this journey to do good in the world, his wife falls on one of the missions, and he loses her, knowing that he can't raise a child on his own with the power that he has. He can't risk bringing misfortune to this child whom he must care deeply about. So he gives her and entrusts her to his best friend, being unable to tell her the truth and be by her side to share in her happiness and her joys. He can only watch from afar, his own internal struggle being put aside for the good of the world. He decides to devote himself to doing good and trying to change the world that his daughter is growing up in, so that she won't have to know the truth, so that she won't have to suffer through the same things that he suffered in. But eventually, she's drawn into it as well. And after being drawn into it, he learns that the person whom he trusted, whom he gave up his family, and whom the love of his life gave his life for, he finds that this person has been lying to him. That the purpose he's been striving for, to defeat the great evil that resides in the world, can't be defeated. That everything he has known is now falling apart. He's given up so much for nothing. And this is the despair that I feel Qrow is going through. This is why, at the point when he finds the truth, when he learns that Ozpin has been lying to him about Salem, he snaps. He's lost. He doesn't know where to go. He doesn't know who to trust. And he's going to fall deeper and deeper into despair. In the opening of the series, we see him being dragged backwards by the grim arms, and he's not fighting it. He's just letting it take him. The despair that Qrow is feeling must be unimaginable. There's been a theory out there that Qrow is Rwby's father for a long time, considering that Qrow and Rwby get along so well. Rwby doesn't really have any resemblance to Ty at all, and she resembles Qrow quite well. They have similar personalities. She takes after Qrow quite well. And Qrow, being the way he is, I'm sure he wasn't an alcoholic when he was at Beacon, but only turned to that after he lost the love of his life, Summer Rose, which would make so much sense. And Ty only saying that, yes, he was in love with Summer Rose as well, using that as a cover-up so that Qrow can go off and be the hero and do some good in the world, because Ty's staying back to take care of his own daughter, as well as his niece, being Rwby, considering Ty would only be related to her through Raven, because Raven is Qrow's sister. That's my theory, at least, and I initially wasn't going to make a video based on this, but with what happened in the most recent episodes and the despair that Qrow must be feeling, I feel it's a good tie-in to this. That Qrow gave up having a daughter and gave up Rwby when she was just a baby so that he could follow Ozpin and try to go defeat Salem, something that he and Summer were both fighting towards. And now finding out that Salem can't be defeated, I can't imagine what that's going to do to him. Because he gave up the 16, 17 years he could have spent with his daughter. Granted, a factor of him giving up Rwby was also due to his own semblance, that he probably figured he couldn't have a child, especially a baby who can't care for themselves, when you have a semblance like that. And In the opening, it says you need to trust in the power you have when Qrow's being pulled backwards by the grim hands into the darkness. Qrow has never trusted the power he has. He's always hated his semblance. When he first revealed his semblance to Team Ranger back in Volume 4, you could tell the disdain in his voice, how he has always been on his own, except for Team Stark. That's when he's been talking about his past, the one time he's happy is when he's talking about Team Stark, where he found happiness, where he met Ty, met Summer, the friends, and the love that he had. That was the time that he was happy. And ever since he lost Summer, it's been on a downward spiral since then. And now it's going to hit an all-time low. And I can only hope that in the coming episodes, Rwby is going to be of some comfort to him. That maybe he'll be able to disclose to Rwby that he is actually her father. Yes, Ty is not going to lose his place in Ruby's heart at all because he raised her as a loving father, but Qrow needs this connection. He needs some support because the one person he had left to rely on for support, Ozpin, he now doesn't trust. Yes, a lot of this is gut reactions, and you can understand kind of what Ozpin went through and why he lied about a lot of the things he did lie about, but he could have been more truthful with Qrow, especially considering Qrow devoted so much of his life and sacrificed so much to this entire purpose. And yes, this is mostly my belief and what I think, but it fits so well with everything. Qrow's alcoholism, Qrow's attachment to Rwby, him always being there to protect her. When there was that story back in Volume 2, Volume 3, when Yang went after her mother and took Rwby as a baby in a wagon, Qrow was there. Qrow wasn't there for Yang, because, frankly, he has no relation to Yang other than Raven. But he was there in person, not to protect Yang, but to protect Rwby, his daughter. And I'm sure when Rwby was a baby, he was there all the time. Transformed as a Qrow, obviously, so as not to stand out, and being able to keep his distance so that his misfortune wouldn't affect her in a negative way. And when she grew up, he was able to be a teacher and actually gain some interaction with her at, Signal Academy? He was able to train her and pass on some of his knowledge and actually act like a family member, be able to bond with her. And you can see that whenever Qrow is interacting with Rwby, they have such a close connection. And I really hope that it is fostered throughout this series and they get to be a family unit and develop that relationship. And that Rwby can be the light in Qrow's life, now that all other light is gone and he is falling into darkness. He needs that connection. And I hope that Rwby will recognize what he's going through and that he needs the help. He has no one to lean on, and she needs to be there for him. I'm hoping that's the way they go, and I hope that eventually Qrow will come to see eye to eye with Ozpin, obviously never trusting him again, but be able to come out of his despair, learn to trust in himself, and trust in more people as well. Especially trust in himself, because Qrow's been able to trust other people before, and although he goes mostly into solitude due to his own mistrust of his own semblance, there's also the fact that he's not really trusting people to take care of themselves. He's now starting to trust Team Rwby and Team Ranger by traveling with them, mainly because Ozpin's there and, the relics are there and they need to protect those, but there's a lot that needs to happen with Qrow emotionally. He needs to get out of this rut that he's in, and unfortunately it's going to get worse before it gets better. He is not in a good place, and he needs everything to get better. And now I want to also mention that Summer Rose, we don't know what happened to her. I'm only assuming that she died on one of her missions. I'm only assuming in this case that she's dead at all. I'm hoping that in some way, shape, or form, she's alive. Maybe related to something to do with the silver eyes of the maidens. Maybe that she had to put herself into a method of stasis, similar to what Rwby did to the Dragon Grim, to take out a horde of enemies. Maybe Summer ended up sacrificing herself for Qrow, and that's what started his alcoholism. But his alcoholism had to come from somewhere. His despair had to come from somewhere, especially considering he was so happy with Team Stark. When Team Stark fell apart, his alcoholism started. And my guess, Summer Rose was that trigger. When he lost her, he started to lose everything else, and his life started to crumble around him. So, overall, I know there's a lot of people who do think that Qrow is Rwby's father as well. So I've always been on that boat. The second Qrow was introduced, and I saw Rwby and Qrow interacting, I always thought that was the case. So let me know what you guys think about this little added caveat and added story to the reason behind Qrow's drinking, that Qrow is Rwby's father, and the despair that he's going to feel. And again, he's one of my favorite characters, and I really hope he doesn't die in this volume. If Summer Rose is dead, I wouldn't be surprised if eventually they have him pass on at some point in the series so that he can go rejoin her in the afterlife, which we now know does exist in the world of Rwby, considering Ozma's soul was brought back, and also the God of Light brought Ozma to the in-between world. The afterlife exists. If Summer Rose is dead, her soul is likely there, and Qrow can go and meet her and be happy, and watch over his daughter Rwby from the afterlife. So let me know what you guys think. If there's anything you guys would like to add to this theory, by all means. I'm looking forward to hear what you guys have. And yeah, it's just a quick little video about Qrow, his despair, and his relation to Rwby, and that Rwby will or needs to become the light of Qrow's life yet again, otherwise he will end up in not a good place and probably end up dying in some way, shape, or form. So let me know what you guys think. A bit of a more depressing video, but hey, it's a video on Qrow, so that's always welcome. But I'll see you guys in the next video. Make sure to subscribe if you haven't, and yeah, I'll see you in the next one.
Hush your cries, close your eyes, stay with me. Let's just dream quietly of what might